40 years of broadcasting in Northern California. The voice of the San Francisco 49ers, Greg Papa. Sponsored by Sunpoint Public Adjusters, the gold standard of the public adjusting industry.
Oh, yeah, the gold standard. Shout out to Sunpoint and shout out to the start of the season as we welcome in, goosebumps, butterflies, all of it, Jason Ross, the voice of your San Francisco 49ers on your home of the San Francisco 49ers. Will this be the season, please? Football Jesus, please let it be the season. The one, the only, Greg Papa. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dave. Jason, we missed you last week. Welcome back. And,
Thank you.
Thanks to Sunpoint, and the sun is out in Northern California. My car is pointing due south. I'm heading directly to Levi's right now. We're getting ready for a Friday practice, which is like a Thursday practice in the NFL, which is kind of a big one. And then the one tomorrow, walk through on Sunday, and then, watch football tonight with Green Bay and Philly and last night's game, and then all the games on Sunday, and Rams go Sunday night, then we get to go at the end. So I kind of like it. It would have been better to play last night because the defending Super Bowl champions have that Thursday game. And that's all I was thinking about when I was watching the game last night. That could have been at Levi's, could have been us. But it's nice to play on Monday Night Football.
How much do you love that routine, Greg, that you just kind of said, like, look, watch last night, you'll watch tonight, you'll watch the weekend, you got your game to prepare for in the meantime, just the cycle, the routine, you've done it for year after year, but you've got to love this at this point.
Well, that's the beauty of playing on Monday night, Jason. I get to watch all the games and see how they handle the dynamic kickoff rule. And, Kansas City just had Butker touch it back last night. He just kicked it through the end zone and gave it to him on the 30. He's got a great leg. I don't know if the Niners will do that with Jake Purdy, but in any event, yeah. I mean, that's and the game last night was so thrilling and back and forth. And, they're both good teams. So we're going to play Kansas City at home this year, but may see Baltimore in the Super Bowl. Who knows? And then the game tonight is Green Bay and Philadelphia. When you look at, the NFC and, behind the Niners, the Lions are clearly there. But Philadelphia added Sactown Barkley, among other things, in the offseason. And Green Bay added Josh Jacobs. And Aaron Jones is a really good player. But Josh Jacobs is a special running back. A couple of years ago with the Raiders, he broke Marcus Allen's single-season record for Raider history and led the league in rushing. Those are two great gets, so it's always nice to watch the league. That's the other side of it is when I'm working on Sunday, like the following week in Minnesota, I'll have to catch up and watch the games later because we'll be playing right when they all get kicked off on Sunday morning. So it's nice when you have a standalone game like a Monday night when you can watch the league around that game.
One of the million reasons I love having you on, Greg, is because you can answer the wonkiest of wonky NFL questions. There was approximately 746 illegal formation penalties called last night, and that is a point of emphasis for the referees. In your opinion, are the Niners, based on their offense and how things run, are they a team you worry at all about as opposed to other teams when it comes to being susceptible to that call?
Well, they motion, old Miami. It's mainly the former Niner coaches that are running offenses in football. Mike McDaniel, Kyle, they do so much pre-snap motions. So you're always susceptible. Kansas City's right tackle, the young guy Taylor, he's back a lot all the time. He was the most penalized player in football. But Kansas City was really impressive last night on how they flipped their tight ends up on the line and back off the line. They would do it all the time. And they like to move Kelsey off of it. So Kelsey would be up on the line in an inline wide position, and then he'd flip with the other tight end and back up, and then Kelsey would go in motion. So the way Andy Reid does it is genius. Where Baltimore was violating a lot last night, and it got to be comical, was their left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, was back too far. It wasn't motion. So they give you a little latitude. So the center's waistband is kind of a line of scrimmage there in those situations, Dave, where the tackles or the guards, they can't line up with their helmet behind the waistband of the center. What they're doing now, and a lot of times they're in 2-point stances, they don't get down to the 3. And the reason I know so much about this is Trent Williams does it all the time. So I watched Trent, watching him yesterday in practice, and I was standing right next to the down judge. We were talking about it, that Trent, he very seldom gets down on the three-point stance. He's up in a 2 most of the time. I worry sometimes when he gets down to the 3 that he tips that it's going to be a run play. But, you know, he's so good at disguise. He knows what he's doing. But what Ronnie Stanley was doing, and how many times did he line up too far back last night? I lost track, half dozen times.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. Baltimore's O-line coach, D'Alessandro, he passed away,
Yeah.
you know, a couple of weeks ago, a week ago. So it was kind of heavy. But, you know, I was thinking, where's the O-line coach? Well, the poor man died. He's been in the league forever. So I don't know if that had an impact. I was surprised Harbaugh had patience with him. I thought he'd just pull him out of the game or at least get in his ear. He did it on that first drive, and they scored anyway. He did it like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're watching the Niners, just watch Trent, because he's the one that backs up a little bit. He's right up against the line. I can't remember him getting called for it too much, but he is one that is right on that line. So watch the crown of his helmet and make sure that it's even with the waistband of the center, Jake Brendel. Then he's good. If he's back too far, they're going to flag him. And I think based on last night, that's going to be a point of emphasis around the league this year.
Greg, as far as Trent Williams, you brought him up, and great news that he's back. He's reported, he's signed. Also, Christian McCaffrey just came back this week. Those two guys are so phenomenal and so important to what they do. Do you expect in game 1 any rust or any lingering? You know, how long do you expect until they're looking like all-pro form?
No, those guys are fine. I think Trent's fine. He's working more this week. He actually practiced yesterday, Jason, which was a technically a Thursday, but it's a Wednesday practice when you get ready for a Monday. And once the season starts, Trent very seldom practices on Wednesday. He takes the day off and then he works with his teammates. So he'll be fine. There may be a little rust and cardio he's got to knock off. McCaffrey's fine. When you have a calf injury, my antenna goes up right away because of what happened to Kevin Durant. You know, calves, if they're low calves, get into the Achilles. So people are freaking out that Kyle said Achilles tendon yesterday. To me, that's always when I hear calf, that's the concern. So I think they have to, you know, be careful that it goes away. But he had a calf injury last year, and you see him all the time with the Theragun. You know, even literally in practice when he's in between reps, he'll bring out the Theragun and work on his neck and his back and his calves. So he knows how to manage that. He'll be fine. I think the guy is the Ayuk, just running routes and getting up to speed. And Brandon never comes off the field. He's out there like 98% of the snaps. So I don't think he'll be able to play that much in this game. But they got Chris Conley at X wide receiver right behind him. Juwan Jennings can play X as well. So I think McCaffrey will be fine, and hopefully he doesn't, you know, do more to it. And Trent will be fine. It's Ayuk and just how many snaps he can play in this game.
Greg Papa joining us, the voice of the 49ers. Greg, I'll ask you the same question I asked Jason earlier, and we'll go back to last night's game. And it's game 1, I understand. But so much of what the Niners are going to do this year, the Chiefs are right there on the other side. All signs point to getting back to the Super Bowl, and all signs point to they're going to have to at some point get to Patrick Mahomes. So did you see anything last night, or do you see anything compared to last year with the Chiefs? Anything where you go, they might be a little vulnerable this year?
Horrible?
Oh, no, vulnerable. Any sort of vulnerability.
I didn't see that last night. I mean, they look pretty good. The one thing long term is they did lose L'Jarius Sneed, who's one of the best corners in football. And he was playing in the nickel a lot, but they moved Trent McDuffie in there last year, and he's the one that blitzed, you know, a lot against the Niners in the Super Bowl. They lost Willie Gay, you know, in the offseason and to free agency. He's now in New Orleans, and he's a great player, very fast and big. But they've got, you know, Drew Tranquil, they got Nick Bolton, they got Leo Chanel. They've got if they suffer an injury in the linebacking core, they're going to miss Willie Gay. They're good, and their defense was great last year, one of the best in the league with Spags. Their offense, they didn't have the weapons they have now. Right. They got Juju Schuster back. Everybody's freaking out over Xavier Worthy, who Buffalo traded Kansas City that pick, which was perplexing. I think what he did last night, I want to see if he can run routes and hold up. You know, he ran the reverse, the end around, the Debo play, and he showed great speed and running ability, but they blocked that so well. Their guys were just out. They know how fast he is, so they were just out in space to get out in front of him. It was so impressive how they blocked that. Nobody laid a finger on him. And then the touchdown down the sideline, you know, Baltimore busted the coverage. They just let him go. So he had three touches last night, 2 touchdowns. So, you know, I'm not going to make any great proclamations about him. His speed will be a problem. The guy who looks better, and I know you wanted me to ask for vulnerabilities, but Rashee Rice looks better than last year. Just the way Patrick's always looking for him. He looks for Kelsey all the time in big situations, but last night on those in-cutting routes, those Debo in-cuts, he was just popping open, whether they put a corner on him or linebacker or safety, or they found some spots in there. They fed him the ball. That was their main attacking point last night was Rashee Rice, and it all played off of that. So I wish I could have said something last night. They look like they've got more weapons around the quarterback, you know, at wide receiver, tight end, Pacheco, than they had last year. So they look like Kansas City to me. You still got to deal with them.
Greg Papa joining us, the voice of the 49ers. Greg, the Niners get the Jets first. You know, Chiefs are the team to watch, and obviously as the defending champs. But other people in the AFC are kind of calling the Jets a trendy pick. They got to 7 wins last year without really quarterback play at all. Rodgers is back. Defense should be good. Offense looks solid. What do the Niners have to worry about in the matchup on Monday?
Well, I mean, obviously with Aaron Rodgers and his elite throwing ability, and I know he's coming off an Achilles, but we didn't see a lot of video from him in training camp. What you could see, he didn't play in the preseason, Jason, but he looks like Aaron Rodgers, and he's one of the most special throwers in the history of football. You know, the Jets had Joe Willie Namath, who could just flick his wrist and the ball would fly like a jet out of his hand on those bad knees. This guy is different. Just the way he drops angles, and he's just elite. So the way you beat him, and the Niners have beaten him all 4 times in the playoffs, and 2 with this Nick Bosa defense, is you make him uncomfortable in the pocket, and you don't let him have time to hit his back foot and carve you. And that, to me, they've got weapons. Garrett Wilson, the wide receiver, tremendous player. The running back, Breece Hall, not only a great runner, but he led the league last year with running back catches. He had 73, even more than McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara. He's special. So the reason you take away his weapons and his ability to find them is to put him on his back and make him get it out fast and hit him and make him feel uncomfortable. So to me, this game comes down to Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd and the new version of this D-line, the Gold Rush, getting after their rebuilt offensive line. They got 3 new starters on the O-line, 2 at tackles, Tyron Smith, the former Cowboy, Morgan Moses, the right tackle, has been all over the league. I mean, Morgan's as old as Moses. So he's got a little age on him. He'll get Leonard Floyd. You know, Nick will pick where he lines up, but I think Nick likes to rush over Tyron Smith. So I think that's the secret of the game. In order to fuse Rodgers and his special natural throwing ability and Wilson and Breece Hall, you gotta get him on his back and hit him and make him play fast pass, get the ball out of his hand quickly, and then rally up and tackle.
Well, you went through it, Greg, and apart from this matchup specifically against the Niners, I look at the Jets, and that defense has carried them for a while, and they managed to get some wins last year where they hurt Aaron Rodgers and obviously issues at quarterback. You mentioned Breece Hall. Obviously, Garrett Wilson is a phenomenal young wide receiver. It just comes down to, very obviously, Aaron Rodgers. If you knew right now Aaron Rodgers was healthy, is there any reason for you to think the Jets aren't a bona fide playoff contender in the AFC?
If they protect him,
yeah,
and he plays all 17 games, they can be a good team. But I think I don't know if Tyron Smith's going to stay healthy all year, and they did take Fashiono as a backup behind him, a very high draft pick to play left tackle. So, you know, he's a good player, but he's young, but he's got skill set. I don't know if they can count. Those guys have injury history. Tyron Smith's not been healthy for a whole season since 2015. Morgan Moses had a pec injury last year and then another injury the year before. So I mean, you're buying older players with injury history, so we'll see. if they stay healthy and they're what they can be. Now, they're not in their primes anymore. They can still be effective, and Rodgers has to, deal with that. Yeah, they're in a tough division. And Buffalo's lost some people, but Buffalo's good. Miami's good. The AFC is loaded. When I looked at their schedule after this first Niners game, they've got some winnable games they can get to. They had play on a Thursday early in the year. They got 3 games their first 11 days. But I'm not going to put them in the Super Bowl. I don't think they're as good as Kansas City and their other team. They did beat Houston last year, which was shocking, pretty solidly. So a lot of ifs there. And then a lot of times when you have an Achilles injury, it sets off a chain reaction on other body part injuries the next year, as we know, with Durant. So we'll see. That's a lot to ask for. But if Morgan Moses, Tyron Smith, and Aaron Rodgers stay healthy and play all 17 games, and they're a reasonable facsimile of their careers, Rodgers a first ballot Hall of Famer, Tyron's a borderline Hall of Famer, yeah, this could be a good team, and their defense is good. The one thing about their defense, and they're good, and Quinn Williams is good, and Sauce Gardner, even last year, they were vulnerable to the run. So in this game specifically, on Monday night, can Robert Saleh's defense, and they know each other so well, stop Kyle Shanahan's, state-of-the-art, highly sophisticated running game? And then with Ayuk, although Ayuk may not be able to play as much as he usually does, I want to see the matchup where Ayuk's blocks Sauce Gardner. Sauce is a great player, but he's skinny. He's got skinny legs. He's 190 pounds at 6'3"? Is he going to be able to get off Ayuk's block and go tackle the run game on Monday night?
Greg, as the season is here, basically, what questions, concerns do you have? The Niners have been so consistently good. A lot of the same pieces are returning. You mentioned some new guys coming in on the O-line, but what concerns would you have going into this year for this team?
It's just injury. I think if they're healthy, they're loaded. People are talking too much about who didn't take part in training camp, and I get it. Trent Williams is a first ballot Hall of Famer and an all-pro left tackle, and Ayuk is made all-pro last year, and McCaffrey was out at the end. And that's the essence of the Niner running game. And they run that pin and pull play going wide left. The pinner, they used to call it a toss crack, and now it's a pin and pull is the vogue term. The pinner is Ayuk blocking at wide receiver on the defensive end. He comes down and cracks on the defensive end. It's unbelievable. And then the puller is Trent Williams out in space. And then you get Juszczyk and you get Kittle out there. And then you get, give the ball to McCaffrey. They're the best at what they do. So that's the core of what they do. So they gotta look like themselves, but I have no reason to believe they're not going to be themselves, if not immediately, almost immediately. And then beyond that, I tell me where there's a weakness. Tell me where there's a weakness. I thought where Brock, he wants some plays back in the Super Bowl. Brock's not 6'1", so they pressure over the right guard to, get in his throwing lane when he hits the midline. And Kansas City did it with Chris Jones. Teams do that to him, and they pressure in the middle. Dominic Thuney, the rookie starting at right guard, I want to see what he does if he gets Quinn Williams or Javon Kinlaw or Solomon Thomas on Monday night. That could maybe be an upgrade. And Feliciano played well last year. I think Burford's getting healthy. Beyond that, tell me where this team is weak. Where do they have a weakness? The same question you posed about the Jets. If the Niners are healthy and their guys play almost every game this year, how do you beat them unless you're Mahomes in Kansas City? And where's the weakness on the football team?
Well, and the defense certainly is not a weakness. It's a strength. But let me ask you about the defense between people coming and going and, of course, Greenlaw and different injuries they're dealing with. How would you compare this year's defense to last year's defense?
To your point, Dave, if you had to single out a weakness last year, it was the run defense.
Yeah.
And they did not play the run well late in the year. They didn't play the run well against Green Bay the entire game. And they didn't play it well in the first half against Detroit. And they did a good job against Pacheco in the Super Bowl. I think they're arguably, Eric Armstead's a great player, but I think getting Malik Collins, Javon Hargrave looks better to me this year. He's more acclimated in this wide 9 system. And then you had Leonard Floyd, who's probably the best bookend Knicks had since a healthy D Ford. So I'm just looking at that D line. And go back to the 2019 team that went to the Super Bowl. And Nick was a rookie then. You had Nick at one end, D Ford at the other. D Ford was so fast until he hurt his hamstring. And then the two inside guys were the Oregon Tallfers, DeForest Buckner and Armstead. But if they had a weakness, they were too tall. They were 6'7". They're basketball players. So you could double team them and use their size to underneath them and leverage them. I think there's a chance Malik Collins and Hargrave are a more effective D-tackle combination because they're lower to the ground. They run the stunt game with Nick better a little bit because they're, I don't know, sometimes Armstead and Buckner got a little sloppy with that because they were tall and top heavy. And then you got Jordan Elliott and I don't know about Gross-Matos playing in this game with the knee injury, but he got Beal and, some unknowns behind. But I think the D-line, at least as far as what they call the alphas, which is the starting group, most Lloyd, Collins, and Hargrave a year in this system, Dave. I think it has a chance to be better than the group certainly last year, and arguably as good as my original Gold Rush, which was the 2019, Bosa's rookie year team.
Wow. Is there a name, Greg, that they're so familiar with what they've done the last couple of years, the consistency now with Purdy and certainly McCaffrey, and then we all know Ayuk, Kittle, and what Debo's done, even Jennings to that extent. Is there a name maybe offensively that's not in the mix? And heck, it may end up being Pearsall. What a story he could be that we'll be talking about with this offense as the year goes along that maybe we're not talking about enough now.
Well, I'll give you one on each side of the ball, Chase. Offensively, Jacob Cowling.
Okay.
And I think you watched the New Orleans preseason game. Did you watch the Raider preseason game? The New Orleans preseason game, he was electrifying. Running back punts, the route down the sideline for 38 yards. The Raider game, the touchdown pass from Dobbs. Jacob Cowling's going to play. I think it would have been between him and Ricky Pearsall returning punts and being that fourth, wide receiver behind Ayuk, Debo, and Juwan. Now it's going to be Cowlings, and I think they'll use him like Debo, but with more speed. That jet sweep speed that he has. Kyle calls the cheater motion. The Miami uses it with Tyreek Hill, the exit motion, just so fast. So he's got that kind of speed. So look for him. He changed his number. In the preseason, he was 83. He's going to wear 19 on Monday night. So just keep an eye on him, the rookie Jacob Cowling. And then on defense, you haven't seen him much because he didn't play in the preseason because he had a bad low ankle, but it was a bad ankle injury. Isaac Yadam, I think, will be the starting outside corner. When they're in their base, it'll be Diamador Lenore and Charvarius Ward like it was last year. But when they go nickel, it'll be Yadam. Could be Renardo Green as well, but probably Yadam being a veteran. But we're number 22. He's just a high-cut kind of corner who can play press man, good feet long. Kind of prove he can tackle a little bit. So you're going to see him, play a lot of snaps on Monday night for sure.
Greg Papa joining us as we wind down. And let me ask you one last thing about Brock Purdy. Look, I don't want to go crazy here, but Patrick Mahomes should be the favorite to win MVP. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I know you don't pay attention to odds and talking heads and all that, but is it fair to, with the weapons, the exposure, the expectation of what they're going to do this year, and the fact that he's now entering his second full year, third year in the league, is it silly or homerish to say Brock Purdy should be in the MVP conversation this year?
Well, he was in the MVP conversation last year, Dave, until Christmas night.
Yeah.
Going into that Christmas night game against Lamar in Baltimore, it was the number one seed in the NFC, the number one seed in the AFC, and the two top candidates for MVP. And then Brock had his worst game he's ever had. And they intercepted him 4 times. And ultimately the quarterback makes the call. I think it was Mike McDonald, their defensive coordinator in Baltimore, is now the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks in our division. Just had a great game plan to choke off the middle of the field. All the Niner in-breaking routes, the Debo dig, the Kittle over the middle, the Ayuk slant, the McCaffrey option route over the middle. They took it all away. They tipped balls. They intercepted balls. Brock threw 4 picks that night. And he got early in the second half, he got pulled. And Sam Darnold came in and threw one. So, and then Lamar ran all over you in big plays, and they won. So Lamar won the MVP. Brock dropped to 4. Christian McCaffrey finished 3rd last year in MVP, and Brock was 4. And, Lamar won. He watched the Super Bowl. Brock played in the game. And so, I think he was right there last year till the end of the year. If he has a big game that night and Lamar throws 4 picks, it's possible Brock's the MVP of the NFL. So I think he's, without a question, he's a worthy candidate to be. But, if he does win it, it's going to be, big brain Brock and his processing, getting the ball out. And he's got to make some throws and let it rip. He's got an elite arm set and feet. And, he just, besides being 6 feet 5/8 of an inch, he doesn't really have a weakness either. But sometimes his lack of size comes into play. Drew Brees should have won multiple Super Bowls in New Orleans, but I think there were just, big moments and big games where his lack of size just cropped up at the wrong time to lose your game. But I think Brock, and if everybody healthy stays healthy around him and the offensive line protects him and all these weapons are healthy, there's no question. He could lead the league in assists this year and be the most valuable player in the NFL.
5:20 Monday. We get all weekend of football, including tonight, and a full slate Sunday. And then the finale, the encore, if you will, the main event for a lot of us. Jets and Aaron Rodgers at the big 501 Gene taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Greg,
I'm putting it right now. Jason, do you detect a little trepidation in Dave's voice? Do you think the Jets are going to come in here and stay even or win the game on Monday?
He's always nervous.
No, I think the Niners are going to win. I do. But number one, I worry about, they're not a dynastic team because they haven't won the Super Bowl, but they're a perennially good team. And sometimes those teams don't come out of the box right. More importantly, if it's Aaron Rodgers and all those weapons going off, I do think it could be a good game. And I do like that Jet defense. Your point is well taken, though, about the run game. I know the Niners have some knocks. I don't think this is going to be a blowout, but what the hell do I know, Greg? As long as we get a win, I don't care how we do it.
You know what? You've got two different sides of your brain. Your Sacramento Kings fan brain comes out overwhelmingly, and you're just all Dick Pavetta. You see Dick Pavetta too much. You got to remember, these guys have won 5 Super Bowls, so,
You're right. No,
your Niners brain needs to come out every once in a while.
You're absolutely right. Exactly. That comes from a lot of Steph Curry shots against us, Greg. Okay. You can understand. Have a wonderful call, friend, and we'll talk to you next Friday, hopefully after a big opening night win.
Thank you, my friend. Take care, Jace.
Thanks, Greg.
That is Greg Papa. We will take a break.